And we're live.
Okay, wait, that's like 15 seconds of dead air, so I'm actually gonna
Oh,
start.
no, sorry. We were live on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Hi.
Okay.
So tell me when
Um,
you're ready.
okay, so in three, two, one.
All right. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Backstory. So we are talking today about the next book in the Nightblade Epic, the second book, Mystic. And this is only our second episode, so we are just picking basically right back up off of the conversation that we just had about Nightblade and exploring where the story went from there after the end of the last book. And so now we can, I think, talk a little bit more about what you were saying, where
With Zane.
well, yeah, but also like like where did the end of the last book leave it,
Oh, right,
and how did
right.
that lead into Mystic? So, at the time, we had no idea. Like we knew from the last book that Jor-El was looking for Zane, and that was all that I knew. And of course, Zane wouldn't want to be found because he wouldn't want the Mystics finding out about him. Now, the Mystics, actually, this is worth mentioning. The Mystics were one of the very first things that I thought of for the Umbrella series, right? Because that was the genus of the idea. The beginning, the very first seed of the idea for the Umbrella series was it was going to be featuring these characters, and there were going to be mystics. Like, I knew that all the way from back then. And so when I started working on Nightblade, I was like, Jor-El's going to be there and he's going to be a mystic. But it wasn't until Mystic, the book, that we really got to hear kind of what the mystics are all about and learn a little bit more about them and see another side of them other than just Jor-El. And unfortunately for Lauren, to a degree, unfortunately for Lauren, she hears all of that from the mouth of Zane, who is the person currently being hunted by the mystics. So like maybe he doesn't have the most objective opinion. Although he's, as the book continues to play out, he's not entirely wrong.
It doesn't seem like he says anything that's untrue. It's filtered through his perspective and his experience.
Right.
But as we find out, and again, this is one of those areas where I'm not sure if I'm crossing lines from book 2 to 3 or even 4, maybe, but it's not that all mystics are totally righteous and awesome and only.
Yeah.
No, I guess we know because we meet Vivian, who's
Yeah.
a great character. Actually, we meet Vivian in the second book, and she's not that much like Jor-El
At all.
Right. Now what I like is that Jor-El has nothing but respect for Vivian.
Yeah.
And even though she's kind of snaky and does a few ugly things, he's still like, don't speak ill of her.
Yeah.
Like she is my sister. She is a mystic. You will have respect. And I think that whole dynamic is really interesting. But from the moment, I love that, because from the moment you meet Vivian, you know there's something dangerous about her.
Yeah.
And you know that she is in the same class because you've got the red cloak going on, right? She's the same class as Jor-El, but there's something very different about her, and there's something very dangerous about her. And that whole thing, because we get to see Zane, and I love all these teasers. We'll talk about Zane more next time, right? Because that's when he really starts becoming a total shit. But in this episode, or in this book, in Mystic, you actually get to see him be heroic, and there's some really cool things that he does, even though he needs the mage stones to do them.
Yeah.
That whole scene on the river where he just basically fells the ship is pretty boss.
Yeah. And I wanted to. He had done a couple of good things in Nightblade, but like almost kind of grudgingly. Like he does things for the right reasons. Like the very reason he took Lauren out of the forest in the first place, he was totally.
He was trying to rescue her.
Yeah, he was like, no, absolutely not. You're just a dumb kid who wants to go on an adventure. And then she showed him her bruises from her dad, beating her, and he was like, fine. Like he can't just walk away at that point. And like that's a good thing. But then as soon as they leave, he's gone, right? So he's like very, questionable, and again, to his credit, again, if you're listening to this, you should have finished Mystic already. By the end of the book, he goes crazy, like he's like all hopped up on power and like goes nuts.
Well, he's behaving like a junkie.
Exactly. But to his credit, he knew that would happen, and he refused the Mage Stones until they literally had no other choice. Now, to his discredit, he could have mentioned something about what was going to happen, but he's already like so on the lam and so like walking outside the law.
Yeah, I got to say that was really well done, because the first time through I thought, okay, well, I noted that he was refusing them, and that Lauren was saying, I have a great idea, why don't you just become like Super Wizard? And he's like, well, I don't know about all that. But the second time through, once you kind of know what happens and where it goes, it's much more evident that he is trying to protect them from what he will become, because basically he's Jekyll. He doesn't want to become Hyde, and he knows he's going to. But at the point where it's a choice between becoming Hyde and,
dying,
letting Vivian overtake them, then it becomes something different. And I like how that's all handled. Again, open loop. Later we could talk about Shadeborn. No, I think Darkfire.
Darkfire is the next one, yeah.
That. But there is stuff that he has to wrestle with, and that's great conflict for sure. And it's interesting when they finally arrive, and they run into Jor-El. And actually, one of my favorite scenes in Mystic is a small scene. It's not that big a deal, but where Lauren tries to save the little boy.
Oh, right.
I loved that scene.
Yeah.
Here he is getting yelled at and cuffed by his father, and just basically the same abuse she's grown up with her whole life. But that seemed very real to me, because not everybody wants to leave an abusive relationship.
Right.
Not everybody even knows they're in an abusive relationship, because to him, that wasn't abusive. That was just
that's how dad does things. Yeah.
Right. And, help, she's trying to steal me.
Right.
Like I love reversals in fiction. I think reversals are always a lot of fun for both the writer and the reader. You think things are going to go one way, and then, oh my God, they go this way. And that was a really fun one, because you totally understand Lauren. Like, of course she wants to reach out and help this boy, but he doesn't want to be stolen by the weird lady.
Right.
He wants to stay with Da. And that was a great mechanism, I thought, to get them in front of Jor-El.
Yeah. And when they find Jor-El, it was really important to me, because Jor-El sort of subscribes to a philosophy that I don't know if I believe it or disbelieve it, but like, I really wish that I could wholeheartedly and without any reservation, like, subscribe to the philosophy that if you put faith in people, they will justify it. Like, just by putting the faith in them, they somehow sort of feel obligated.
That's my philosophy.
Right. Ha ha. But like, it fills them with a sense of obligation to, like, I want to live up to his expectations. And it works on Lauren, who, even though she makes missteps and whatever, she does have a lot of faith in Jor-El, and she doesn't want to, like, disappoint him or let him down. And it works on it seems to work on Zane, because he's like, he could just capture Zane and take him away to some prison and be like, you're going to sit there until you agree to help me. But he's like,
he flat out says, no, it needs to be your decision, because if it's not, then I don't have all of you. And
right.
It's like, being in a relationship, you don't want to be one of those couples where you guilt the other party into staying with you. Like,
yeah.
Like, what kind of that's not a real relationship. It's coercion. It's ugly. And that's the same thing with Jor-El. He doesn't want Zane to just be, his reluctant aid. He wants him to play full out and to want to help, because and it is in Mystic, right, where he takes him aside and tells him what's really going down.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, well, and I like that too, because then the reader's like, well, I want to know what he told Zane.
Right.
Right. Which, again, Lauren gets to be our stand-in, and she says, well, you're going to tell me, right? And Zane says, yes, I will tell you. And then later, why aren't you telling me? Because you cannot know.
Right.
no.
Yeah.
And that kind of, that hunger to know what's actually happening, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I had people after Mystic say, I knew Zane was lying. When he said he was going to join Jor-El, I knew he was lying. I don't see it that way at all.
He wasn't lying.
He wasn't.
He wasn't lying at all.
Yeah, his like the Mage Stones took over. Like he was like, shit, like this is heavy stuff. I have to help Jor-El. And then as it worked on him more and more, and he gets more just like obsessed with it, he decides to bail. And when he bails, he says, he's a fool for doing what he's doing and for trying to withstand the thing that he told me about. But that's just an excuse. That's like the person who's like so desperate for a high that they steal money from like their own family and do all kinds of stuff that they would normally never ever do.
Right. It's exactly like that. And he says that there's a bunch of times throughout the story where he says something and he immediately retracts it. He's like, that's just the Mage Stones talking. So that's a consistent pattern of behavior for him, where he's just, it's really not him. The Mage Stones get inside him, and they don't just make him physically ill. Like the withdrawal that he goes through is very much, to me, heroin.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's just very much going through heroin withdrawal, and it's terrible and it's ugly and you feel sorry for him. But it's also affecting his personality on a deep core level, where he's not even, he's really having to wrestle with, because he's saying these things that he doesn't mean, but they're coming out of his mouth anyway, and he has to deal with the aftermath of how he's making everybody respond to him.
Right. Yeah, and so going to Vivian for a moment. Vivian is the other example of Jor-El has faith in her, and like that is half the time what keeps her from being more snaky than she is. She actually doesn't reveal that she's found Annis and that she knows where she is. She doesn't tell the family Yaren about that. She doesn't, go after Zane and try to capture him and whatever, because like Jor-El, like he'll stick up for her when somebody is speaking bad about her, and he places his faith in her. And kind of one of like the breaking point at the end of the book is when she realizes that Zane is hopped up on Mage Stones. And as a mage herself, like that is, she's like you never do that, because like look what happens. I mean, we get to see what happens, and she knows.
And she calls him a stone eater, and you can just tell by the way she says it, like, oh, them's fighting words.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I also think there's a nice layer to Vivian too, where we see her, she's certainly willing to attack, and there's that side of her, but she's so concerned about Wellmont, and she's so concerned about preserving the city and making sure that the citizens are all safe. And so what I love about Nightblade and everything I've seen so far is that everything is layered. There are just not these cardboard characters that are just so one-dimensional that they may as well be wallpaper, right? That they're just there to serve you as the god author,
right?
To put them all, like, it's because that's bullshit. And when you read a story like that, it really does, it clangs in your ear. It just feels hollow. And we believe all of your characters. They're just very easy to believe. I understand Lauren, I understand Jem, I understand Annis, but I really understand Zane. And that's even more remarkable, because it's easier to understand Jem. He's a whippersnapper, and he's boastful, and he's just he's a kid with a lot of happy-go-lucky id kind of.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to like Jem and to understand him. But when we can look at someone like Zane or like Viv, even Jor-El, it's easy to, he's noble. So of course we understand nobility. We want to understand nobility. We want to identify with nobility. But when we understand a junkie, or when we understand, Vivian, who is cold and just mean. But
why are you so mean?
Yeah, we also know she's not heartless, because she cares deeply. Like she wants the wizard to help me defend the city. What are you doing?
Right.
And then there's that conflict between her and Jor-El, where he's like, you should not have involved the wizard in this, because it ruined my plans.
Yeah.
And that's all very well orchestrated conflict.
Yeah, and also Mystic is the first time where we really see Lauren's pacifism become an issue. Like, And by issue, I mean like a significant driving force of the story. It's why she leaves Jor-El at the very beginning of the book, and it's why even after everything that she sees of him, she's willing to place faith in Zane, because whatever else he's done, he hasn't killed anybody. And she can't say that about any of the other players in the game, right? So even when he kidnaps Annis and she goes and finds him and she helps him escape the city, because like as she sees it, he's trying to keep himself from crossing that ultimate line, you know? Like he doesn't want to be like, he's to some degree accepted the fact that like he is a junkie, and yes, he does need to get his next fix and whatever, and he like convinces Lauren to give him another Maidstone and everything like that. But he is legitimately trying not to actually hurt anyone, not to kill anyone. You know what I mean?
I love that story he tells too, the bullshit story.
Yeah,
where he talks about I've been hunted for murder.
Yeah,
and Jor-El's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
For murder. That's a nice reversal too, because I, as the reader, that first time believed him.
Yeah,
you know, I believed him. Oh, you did not, Zane.
Right.
And then, you know, Jor-El's like, no, he didn't.
Yeah,
it's fine. And I think that's smart too, because you can see he's clearly just he's trying. He knows how low he can go, and so he's just trying to get out of the situation.
Right. And it's funny that one of the most common negative reviews that I get on the Nightblade series as a whole is Lauren's pacifism. Is like, that just pisses people off. Like, oh my God, please just kill someone. And like, on one level, that kind of comment like disturbs me a little bit. I'm like, Jesus, she's 15, and it's not like some people have. One review that I remember in particular is like, oh my God, it's like pushing this like extreme pacifism thing, and I'm like, literally everyone in the story is anti her viewpoint, and there's many times in the story where it would clearly be more beneficial, not just to Lauren, but like to people in general, for her to abandon that, you know? And that's like, that goes back to what I was saying about Nightblade, where it is a story about like sort of like coming of age, right? And I think that we do all leave our home and go out into the world, whether it's to work or to college or whatever, and we have these certain ideas that we're like, this is the way that it is. Like, we feel very strongly, we're willing to take these extreme just moral stances that like we think we'll never waver from this. And then we realize that like the real world is a little bit different than it is. And like, it doesn't mean that we need to abandon the way that we feel or what we think is right, but we do have to adapt a little bit, and we can't be too quick to judge other people who don't feel or act the same way that we do, because maybe they never even had the opportunity to know that like there was another option. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't think at all it's in any way an extreme pacifism that's being pushed at all.
Right.
I think it's a great character arc.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to see, like, let's say all of a sudden in book 9, you know, she's slaying people left and right. Then you're going to have people pissed off that, right? Like, it's like one of those things where you just can't do it right. Because here you're going to have people bitching that she never kills anybody. And then you'll have people bitching, oh, I like what you did when she was a pacifist, and now you just made her a bloodthirsty mongrel. Yeah. Right. But the point is, people change, people adapt, and it's not, she struggles. Yeah. It's interesting to read her struggle, because she's not even clear on her own pacifism. Right. It's not like she's dogmatic about it the whole way. There are many times within the books, and this may be blurring the lines because I don't think this really happens until Darkfire, where she's really questioning this, like, okay, you know, what have I been doing? And then I know she really questions it in Shadeborn because of stuff that happens in Darkfire. We'll talk about that then. But I don't think it's
well, right at the end of Mystic, she's ready. She's almost ready to kill Zane. Right. She's almost ready, and she just can't quite do it. And maybe she would have mustered it, like the ability. Maybe she wouldn't have, but then Zane manages to overpower her before she gets the chance. But like, she was like just about ready to do it. And I think that was probably sort of a frightening moment for her. And if it, like, I won't, we won't say in this episode whether or not it does happen in later episodes, but like Jem and Annis give her a lot of crap for her. They're like I'm 10 and I think you're being an idiot. I think you're being naive about the world, and you're 5 or 3, in Annis's case, 3 years older than me. What the hell? But I think if she had lost control and she had killed Zane, I don't know how they would have reacted to that. I don't think they would have thought it was. I think that, as annoyed as they can get with her for it sometimes, I think that they're actually very, very comforted to have her kind of holding that line. And Jor-El actually says as much. It's like, it wasn't right for me. Like, I'm not going to insist that you acknowledge I'm okay. Like, I'm okay to kill people. I'm not going to insist that you say that that's something that I can do. And I'm not going to say that you're wrong for feeling the way that you do about it. And like, that is sort of what I think is an an opinion that will continue to influence Lauren as she continues on her journey.
That's a hard space to hold. She's holding space in that way. Right. And it is comforting for the children, and it's not black and white for her. She's very conflicted through every book about it. Maybe not so much in Nightblade. I think in Nightblade she's a little more righteous.
Yeah.
She's a little more like,
looks down on him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm better than everybody because I don't kill. Yeah. Right. But I mean, and you'll see, if you're listening to this right now and you haven't read the coming books, it is not that simple. It is not black and white. And it's interesting. If it was more black and white, that makes for boring reading. There's no conflict there. And that is one of her biggest sources of conflict, because it's not that and that is what makes her an interesting stoic character, because it's not that she doesn't have the impulse to kill.
Yeah.
It's that she controls it. She throttles it. She's always trying to figure out another angle or figure out another way where, how can we get out of this situation without, without bringing death upon us?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to do that. And I think that's noble. And, Jor-El is noble in his way. Jor-El is noble because he was brought up with nobility, right? He was raised with manners and with customs and with the mystic, structure. Lauren is noble because she's good of heart.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And she has to fight a lot harder to keep it.
And she feels the way that she does because she knows it's the opposite of her parents. She's still rebelling against them even when they're no longer in her life. It's like okay, so if a kid is like abused growing up, like in today's world, sometimes that can grow up and that can plague them for their life, and it can become like a repeating cycle, and that's terrible. But then you do get the people who grow up and they're like, I'm never going to be like my dad or my mom. I'm never going to be like my parents. I will never, ever let that happen. And I will have kids and I will be a better parent than they were. It becomes.
But sometimes those parents can even be like too dogmatic.
Yeah, right? For sure. Yeah.
So
where it's like, don't ever raise your voice to a child. It's like, well, okay.
No, sometimes you gotta be, the lion protecting his cubs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to be. Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think that it's great that she's not. She's figuring it out. Because you can't lose sight, and you've said this many times, it really is about growing up and finding yourself. And Lauren starts this series as a 15-year-old girl.
Right.
How close are you to the person you were when you were 15?
Right.
Not very, right?
Yeah.
There's still some things that I'm sure are the same. Same for me. Like, my nose is the same size. It's still big. It's still gonzo. I still look like Ray Romano. But and there are some core personality things that are the same too. I'm still, too talkative. I'm still a wise ass, but how I see the world has definitely changed a lot.
Yeah.
The last 25 years, because there would be something wrong with me if that hadn't, if that wasn't the case.
And I think that if Nightblade is about, like sort of breaking free of your past, like breaking out into the wide world and trying to trying to learn how to learn who to trust, like trying to discover how to find people that you can trust and work with, and find people who you do want to have in your life. Then Mystic is about, like, now that you have like sort of found people, are you going to take responsibility for them? Are you going to like try and do some good with whatever gifts and opportunities you have, and then also like with the people that you have chosen to put in your life, and how much responsibility do you have to take for your own actions and for their actions? So that's sort of what I was trying to put into the pages of that one. So yeah.
Same question as last time. How did you, ending Mystic, how did you know what you kind of wanted to do for Darkfire? It seems like that the transition between Mystic to Darkfire is a little smoother than Nightblade to Mystic, just as far as the storytelling elements. Like a lot more was already in place for one story to just kind of go into the next.
Before I finished Mystic, I knew that the mystery of what Jor-El had told Zane in Wellmont, I knew that I wanted not the complete answer, because the complete answer doesn't come in Darkfire, but I wanted the beginnings of the answer, and I wanted a couple things that are a little bit spoilery. So I wanted to bring
open loops.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to, like, by the time Darkfire was happening, I started to get the feeling that I was like, I think I'm close to being able to go back to the Umbrella series. I don't think like I'm 1 or 2 books away, but I think I can see it on the horizon, So I wanted to start bringing another dimension into the story. I wanted to start expanding and making it more epic, so that, going forward, Lauren's adventures would affect more than just her, because all this time it has been deeply personal, and it will always continue to be deeply personal, because like I'm invested in Lauren, and she is doing what she's doing and trying to find her way in the world. But I knew by the end of Mystic that I wanted her to start seeing, learning a little bit more, like the kind of thing that like Jor-El knows that's going on out there, and that's sort of what led into Darkfire, which we will talk about later.
Yeah, Darkfire. We'll talk about Darkfire. Yeah, I liked Darkfire a lot, though. Until Shadeborn, Darkfire was definitely my favorite. A lot of cool stuff happened in Darkfire, and some of it surprising, and we see. Yeah, we need to talk about this later.
Yeah. It's so hard to talk without spoilers.
Yeah. On the next episode of
Backstory.
Yeah, but Darkfire is definitely one I'm excited to dig into and have a backstory conversation about.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you, obviously you are listening if you're hearing this, so thanks so much for listening to this episode of Backstory, and we can't wait to see you for the next one, where we talk about the 3rd book in the Nightblade Epic, Darkfire, and we'll see you then.
All right, awesome.
You're done? Okay, so YouTube, thanks so much for watching. If you watched, we are going to do a story meeting now, and we're not going to do that on the air. We go out and do our walks and everything like that. We are going to do another episode of Backstory when we can. We're not exactly sure when that's going to be. So keep an eye on my Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and I'll make sure to post it when it happens. Sometime within the next week for sure, and we'll do Darkfire and Shadeborn. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you later. Bye.